in a shed again. Now, this little stationary engine, now if we're going to put a link to it running with your daughter's playing with it.
That's it.
And so tell us a little bit about it, will you?
So that's really, so it's a Ruston Hornsby 1921 6 AP, 6 being the horsepower, even though this one's a 5, but that's what they called it. This is one of the first production run of 80 that they built when this engine first was released to sale for to the public. There's quite a few differences on this, being a pre-production model. It's not really pre-production because it did go out, but they made 80 of them, and then they started making some differences to it. I've always wanted an open crank engine. I think they look lovely when they sit there running. And I found this one, and yeah, we sort of brought it back to life again because it wasn't running.
I do like it because it's in its working clothes, you know.
Yeah, it is.
Apart from the fuel tank, because obviously you had to replace the fuel tank.
Yeah, yes, the fuel tank's a copy of a fuel tank that should be on it, but obviously they're only tin, so they rust out. And this didn't have the fuel tank. I was lucky to find a genuine fuel tap for it.
Yeah.
But as you say, it's in its working clothes. That's 1921, so it's 102 years old now.
Single cylinder, double flywheel, isn't it?
That's it. Yep. It's not a hit and miss engine, as most people sort of assume these are. Excuse the phone. I'll just turn it off. Yeah, it's not a hit and miss engine. It is a carburettor and throttle body controlled, so it fires every
stroke.
Every other. It's a 4-stroke engine.
Yep.
Starts on petrol and runs on paraffin.
Okay.
Yeah, so I mean, to start this, you fill the as you'll see on the other videos, you started by filling petrol into the carburettor bowl there.
Yep.
Fly it over, it starts to run, and then literally as soon as it's fired a couple of times, you can turn on the main paraffin flow to it, and off it
Oh,
goes.
so you haven't got an actual petrol tank or anything like
No.
that? You just pour it into the carburettor itself and...
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I mean this will just literally run on from there. It's not like a tractor that you have to wait to warm the vaporizer up or anything like that. It will just literally burn that bit of petrol. It's enough heat in there, and it will just carry on.
Right.
And it runs so smooth. Rustons are well known for that. A very nice, smooth running.
Now that big thing on top, now I presume it's the water tank or the water radiator or whatever you call it.
Yeah, that's the hopper. So it's your cooling water goes into there. Another one of the early features. It's got this anti-splash cone.
Oh, the cone on top. Yeah.
Yeah. So if it's being moved around or anything, the water can't come out. The later ones just have a circle in the top. It's yet another casting that I didn't need to make.
Right. So if you was to fill that up, how many gallons or litres of water does that take?
Oh, it's a good, I would say probably 30 litres of water in there. It's a few watering cans, and then some of this you can see, I don't know if your camera will pick it up, but you've got the pinstriping around here, which is the original pinstriping from when it was fully painted. But around here, you've got, just at the end of my finger there, I don't know if you can see it, but it says water level. So that's the original, the original sort of sign writing that was on it to show you where it has to run. Running wise, it'll go on for quite a few hours on the fuel tank of fuel, depending on what you're driving and how much
obviously, do you know the history of what it's used for, Rob?
No, I don't. All you can tell, and there's a guy called Ray Hooley who is the Ruston. He holds a lot of the records that were for Ruston. They were very good at keeping notes on who bought them and sold them, and this was owned by a SG. It was first bought in 1921 by SG Godfrey down in Sussex. I can't remember the name of the village, but it is it's down there, and I'll have that details of the original address, and it still exists, the place.
Really? So would you put a little bit of oil in it to start, would you, on the crank or something? A grease cap or something like that? Yeah,
oiling it is the first thing. Is just, as you'll see if you link in that other video that I did with my daughter starting it up, you have to pre-oil it. A bit like a steam engine really. These are all wick oilers in here. Okay. So they've got a little wick inside. And then you fill that up with engine oil. I use a 40 grade. Same for the oiler, which is on the big end there.
Oh, yeah.
The golden cap in there. That's a wick oiler as well. You've got the cylinder oiler here, which is another sign of the early ones because they were later fitted round here afterwards. So
right.
put it on the side at first and then put it
And what does that lubricate the bore?
Yeah, it lubricates the bore and then the small end as well.
Okay.
So yeah, you just, once it starts running, lift up that and then it's 16 drips of oil every minute. And you have to keep an eye on that, that's why it's glass, and eventually that will go down. You'll have to put some more oil in it. There are other oiling points. This is sort of like the more boring side, really.
Yeah, I mean, it's a substantial piece of kit, isn't it? I mean, it's not a little Wolseley or anything like that, and this is what I think lights both our candles, really.
Yeah.
Because it is something a little bit special, isn't it?
Yeah, it's half a ton of engine. You know,
yeah.
It's big. Low tension ignition, so you've got all the trip and the igniter down this side. Has got a spark plug, and the valve gear here. But it'll sit there quite happily, tonking away, and use the flat belt to.
Now, obviously, that's the original exhaust box.
Yeah, it is. That's the original silencer.
And you put a bit of pipe, what, 1.5 inch bit of pipe?
New bit of that's 1.25 inch BSP gas pipe, or line, what you want to call it.
Yeah.
New bit in there. This is a heat shroud, so from when it's working on light loads.
Oh, all right.
So light loads, you have this turned around to where it says hot air for light loads on the top of this thing, and it draws the air across the exhaust pipe, which gets warm fairly quickly, up into the carburettor, and it helps vaporise the fuel going in there. If it's working harder, you can turn it round to cold air intake for quarter to full load. And instead of it taking it through here, it takes it through the gauze and straight in.
Yeah.
And it'll suck the air in directly through. And
I've just been running a bit of time, you can swap it over like we do with your car.
It depends what you're doing with it. You know, it needs to burn clean, so it needs a certain amount of constant temperature in the in the cylinder. Otherwise, it will carbon the igniter up.
Yeah.
And it'll end up misfiring. But yeah.
Fantastic. Well, I appreciate it, Rob.
So we're going to do a little video of how to start up this 1921 Ruston, and daughter number 2 is going to start it up today. So we're doing some of the prep work on it just to get it ready to go. If you look through the flywheel here, she's filling up the big end oiler with the oil can there, so that's engine oil, 40 grade, and that's got a wick in the middle of it. And then we've got another oiler over there, and we've got one here that's got to be filled up for the main bearings. So she's just filling that up at the moment. And then some of the other bits we've got to do, that's already got oil in it. That's for the cylinder. We'll put a little bit on the piston just to help it when it starts, even though it's got oil all over that. Got water in there for coolant. If you can see it, we've just filled up the paraffin tank with a little bit of paraffin, though we're running a bit low on it. Next thing we're going to do is get the engine into the starting configuration. So there's 2 things we have to do around here, and there's some slight subtle differences with this engine as opposed to the models which came after it. So this engine in particular is the first of 80 which were built, and there were 80 built, and then there were a lot of changes made to them as they found things that didn't work quite right or were better designed and work in a different way. So it's a flick magneto, low tension ignition, but we've got an advance and retard on here. So at the moment you'll see that is on run. So we need to go over to the start position, and that is over there like that. And all that does is delays the spark, retards it is the correct term, so it fires more or less on top dead centre. Not very good for power, great for starting though, so it doesn't kick back at you. So that's in the start position. As soon as it runs, we'll flip that straight over. The other thing we need to do, which I'm not sure we're going to be able to at the moment because she's filling up, that's enough in the oil Indian. So as you can see, she's put that much oil into it, and then we need to put the cap back on, which she's going to do now. That's more than enough. So these oilers, even if you don't run the engine, they continue to work because they have a wick inside them, and that wick always is capillary action pulling the oil up, and then gravity takes it back down the other side. Make sure that's tight. You don't want that coming undone while it's running. Alright, we'll show that in a second. So if we can now position the engine slightly differently backwards, we'll be able to put it into low compression. That's it, India, that's fine. So as you see on this one, the decompressor is here, On the models afterwards, after the first 80, they swapped this over. So what you'll notice is you've got this pin which holds the roller in that position, which is the normal running position, and we need to get that over to the other side. Just take it that way. It's a bit stuck on the that's it right there, lovely. We'll put the roller over to decompression. The reason I think they changed that around is to be the other way around, is that when the engine's running, the roller is over here on this side, which is inherently going to make the rocker for the exhaust valve try and twist, so it'll wear it out. By putting it over on this side, they achieved less twisting action, which would have made the bearing in here last a lot longer. So that's one of the things, and a lot of people have picked that up already on one of the videos which I did, where I put these bits and pieces on when we went to start it. There is some subtle differences on this engine. So that is in start position. We're ready to go now. We've got some other oiling points to do, so things like down here on the rockers, there's little oil galleries, little oil holes everywhere, and we just need to get a little bit of oil around everything, make sure it's all ready to fire up. I always put some around the carburetor spindle, so on and so forth. Valves down the governor down there, the slipper collar there, which is continuously rotating for the throttle. The magneto, which has a little oiler here for the spindle and a little one at the back here for the other spindle. What's quite nice about this, if you notice the number on the magneto, 111560, is the engine number, so it's the original magneto for this engine. Yep, so she's just filled up that oiler there. Flip that one down. You want to put a bit down that hole there. Couple of drips, that's it. And you've got one in front here as well you need to do. Goes down in that one. That's the one. And then you should go around and fill the other oiler up on the other side, down there. So we've got enough oil. So we're going to give this engine a bit of a better run today. We've played around with it. I've done a few modifications, or quite a few little, I say modifications, tweaks to the things, which would obviously be, I don't know, modified in its past and bent and not quite right, and to get it to run, to get it to run nice. So around here, we've got the fuel tank. The exhaust pipe coming off to the left there with the heat shroud, which we'll explain in a second. The carburetor and the throttle going through, and this is going in through as your exhaust valve. Your inlet valve assembly, and that's where the fuel and air mixture is drawn into the engine. So we have got here various different positions on here. So like the other Rustons, like the PB that I've got, primary and petrol goes into there because that's what we're going to fire it up on. Fill it up to the gauze, right up to the top. You'll have this round on to start, and then all it can do is draw in the petrol through the carb bowl. And then, as soon as it's fired and started, we're going to bring that round to here, and then we can open up the fuel, and the fuel will come all the way down. The petrol will be drawn out through into the engine, giving it that initial bit of heat it needs to carry on to paraffin, an off-fuel run. This contraption here is for hot load, a light to half load hot air. So in that position there, which is the position we run it in because we're not using it to drive anything, the intake air is taken through this shroud here, up through this pipe, into the carburetor assembly, and down through, and then up this tube past the jet and into the engine. If it was driving and working hard, you turn that round and it says cold air on the top there for 3/4 to full load, and that cuts off this part here and allows the air to be drawn in through this filter gauze here, for colder air flow going in there, so we don't suffer with any pre-ignition problems with the paraffin going into the engine. You can run these engines on petrol only. I just like to run it on paraffin because it smells nice and that's what it's designed to run on. Yeah, so as you see, she's going around the various different points. That's it, India. Little dribble in there. That one there. That's it. One on top of on the push rod there. That's it. Yeah, that's enough. And then one on the push rod bearing there. There's one on the exhaust one underneath as well, which you have to sort of bend down a bit for. Got it?
Yeah.
And then we'll do a little bit on the valves, a little bit on the spindle, and then we'll be ready to go.
No.
Here, look. So basically what I'm doing today is just teaching her how to prep the engine for running. It's a bit of one to see, so I'll get you in there. It's down there though. That's that. Bit on there, bit on there. Tiniest little bit on the igniter, just to dribble down. And then I always put a little bit there on the linkage. And a little bit on the spindle on this side, just to keep the throttle. Bit in there for the valve, works its way down through into the valve stem, and then the exhaust one is more difficult to get through, but I need to get a screwdriver to do that really, but it should be alright because I only did it the other day. And the magneto's fine, otherwise it's just going to get into a mess. So I'm going to stop us there, and I'm going to put the petrol in with her, and then we'll cut back in with the other side of the video to show it actually starting and bring it into life. So we're all primed up. The carburettor has got petrol in it, ready to go. I've filled that up. It's all in the right position. What I'm going to do is get India to pull that over. She is only 11 years old, and this is quite a big lump of an engine, so she's going to put it over as best she can for me. And hopefully it'll fire into life, and then you'll see me do all the bits, because I don't want her getting in the way from the flywheel. She's safe at the back of the trailer there. And we're just going to do those little bits there, put it into run mode, put it onto full compression, and then turn it onto run and put the paraffin on, and off it will go. So take it away, India. It's fired. Go on, keep spinning it. That's it, keep going. Beginning to go. Go on, keep going. There it goes. So that's ignition done. On to full. On to run. And the fuel's on. Cylinder oil. Now we'll start going through. So this has been running for a good sort of half an hour now. As you can hear, it doesn't miss a beat. Even though it's on no load, it still fires on every firing stroke that it should do. You see there's plenty of pit oil on the piston down there because it's quite shiny, which is nice. So the oil is dripping. Set that up for 16 drips of oil a minute, and that is set on the top here. And you'll see the oil coming out now. Drip on there. It'll drip out. There it goes. And that's beginning to warm up nicely.